He saw me hitchhiking on the Nevada Desert Highway at sunset, and when I climbed into his pickup truck, the first thing I noticed wasn't his beard or his weathered hands or the silence that seemed to fill the entire cab. It was how safe I felt with a complete stranger who could have been anyone. My car had broken down 50 miles outside of Reno, my phone had no signal, and I'd been standing on that desolate stretch of highway for 2 hours watching the sun sink lower in the sky when his truck appeared like a mirage. He was tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair and a full beard that made him look like he'd spent years away from civilization. When he rolled down his window and asked if I needed a ride, something in his quiet voice made me trust him immediately. "Where you headed?" he asked as I threw my backpack in the bed of his truck and climbed into the passenger seat. Before I continue this, hit that subscribe button. I post one real story every single day. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'm always curious who my stories are reaching. Salt Lake City, I said, settling into the worn leather seat. Eventually. You. Same direction. That was it. No small talk, no questions about why I was hitchhiking alone through the Nevada desert. Just same direction and the quiet hum of the truck engine as we pulled back onto the empty highway. I studied his profile as we drove. Strong jawline, deep-set eyes that seemed to see everything, hands that gripped the steering wheel like he was used to controlling heavy machinery. He was older than me, probably early 40s, and there was something about the careful way he held himself that suggested he'd learned to be gentle with his own strength. "I'm Zoe," I said after we'd been driving for 20 minutes in complete silence. "Jack. Thank you for stopping. Most people wouldn't pick up a hitchhiker these days. Most people probably shouldn't." There was something in his tone that made me look at him more carefully. "Should you have?" Jack glanced at me briefly before focusing back on the road. "Jury's still out on that. Are you dangerous, Jack?" "Not to you." The certainty in his voice sent something warm through my chest. "How do you know?" "Because if I was going to hurt someone, it wouldn't be someone who looks like they're running from something worse than me." I felt my breath catch. "What makes you think I'm running from something?" 25-year-old woman hitchhiking alone through the desert with a backpack and no car? Either you're running from something or towards something. Either way, it's none of my business. What if I told you I was running towards something? I'd ask what was so important that you were willing to risk getting in a truck with a stranger to get there. I was quiet for a moment, watching the desert landscape roll past outside my window. The sun was almost gone now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that made everything look otherworldly. "My sister," I said finally. "She's in Salt Lake City, and she's in trouble. I need to get to her." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind where she called me crying at 3 a.m. saying she'd made a mistake and needed help but couldn't explain over the phone." Jack nodded like this made perfect sense to him. "Family." "Family," I agreed. "What about you? What's in Salt Lake City for you?" "Nothing." "Then why are you going there?" Jack was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, rougher, like the words were hard to say. "Because it's far enough away from Reno to start over." "Start over from what?" "Everything." I felt something shift in the air between us, something heavy and complicated. "Jack, are you okay?" "Define okay." "I mean, are you safe? Are you in trouble? Should I be worried about being in this truck with you?" He pulled over to the side of the highway so suddenly that I grabbed the door handle. "Why are we stopping?" Jack put the truck in park and turned to look at me directly. In the dim light from the dashboard, I could see that his eyes were a deep green, and there was something in them that looked like pain. "Zoe, I'm going to tell you something, and after I tell you, you can decide if you want to keep riding with me or if you want me to call you a cab from the next town." My heart started racing. "Okay." 3 days ago, I lost my job. Not fired, not laid off. The company I'd worked for 15 years just disappeared. Bankruptcy, fraud, something I didn't see coming. "I'm sorry." "That's terrible, but..." 2 weeks before that, my father died. Cancer. I'd been taking care of him for 2 years, and when he was gone, I realized I didn't know how to live for myself anymore. I felt my chest tighten with sympathy. "Jack." And 6 months before that, my wife left me. Said she was tired of living with someone who cared more about other people than he cared about himself. Was she right? Probably. Jack ran a hand through his hair. The point is, when I picked you up tonight, I wasn't just driving to Salt Lake City. I was driving away from everything I'd ever known because I didn't know how to stay in a place where everything reminded me of what I'd lost. And now? Now I'm sitting in a truck with a woman I've known for an hour, and for the first time in months, I don't feel like I'm disappearing. The honesty in his voice made me want to cry. Jack, why are you telling me this? Because you asked if you should be worried about being in this truck with me, and the answer is complicated. How is it complicated? Because I'm not dangerous, but I'm not stable either. Because I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and getting involved with someone right now would probably be the worst decision either of us could make. Getting involved? Jack looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Tell me you don't feel it too. I stared at this man who had just laid his entire broken life out between us, and I realized that the safety I'd felt when I got in his truck hadn't been about physical protection, it had been about recognition. I feel it, I said quietly. What do you feel? Like I've been waiting my whole life to meet someone who understands that sometimes you have to run away from everything you know just to figure out who you are. Is that what you're doing? Running away? My sister's not in trouble, Jack. I mean, she is, but not the kind that requires emergency rescue. What kind of trouble is she in? She's getting married. To someone I think is wrong for her. And she called me because she wanted me to be her maid of honor. And you're running away from a wedding? I'm running away from a life where I smile and nod and pretend everything is fine when nothing feels fine anymore. What would you do if you were in my place? Tell me in the comments. Jack was quiet, processing what I'd told him. What kind of life are you running from? He asked finally. The kind where I work at a job I hate to pay for an apartment I never want to go home to, where I date men who are fine on paper but make me feel like I'm slowly suffocating. Where everyone thinks I have it all figured out because I'm responsible and reliable and never cause any drama. Tell me about the job you hate. Marketing coordinator for a tech company in Seattle. I spend my days writing copy for products I don't understand, targeting demographics I don't relate to, measuring success by metrics that feel completely meaningless. And the men who are fine on paper? I laughed, but it came out bitter. The last guy I dated was a software engineer named Brad. Perfect credit score, nice apartment, plans for the future. We dated for 8 months, and the entire time I felt like I was auditioning for the role of appropriate girlfriend instead of just being myself. What happened? He proposed. At a nice restaurant, with a ring he'd clearly researched extensively. And when he got down on one knee, all I could think about was how the rest of my life would be exactly like the past 8 months, comfortable, predictable, and completely soul-crushing. Did you say yes? I said I needed time to think about it. Which was apparently the wrong answer, because he told me that any woman who really loved him wouldn't need to think about it. Sounds like a charming guy. He wasn't wrong, though. If I'd really loved him, I would have said yes immediately. The fact that I didn't just prove that I was settling for something that looked right instead of something that felt right. And you don't want to be responsible and reliable? I want to be those things when they matter. But I also want to feel like I'm actually living my life instead of just managing it. I want to wake up excited about the day instead of just grateful that I can pay my bills. When was the last time you felt excited about anything? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. Maybe when I was in college. I studied photography, and I used to spend hours driving around taking pictures of things that caught my eye. Old barns, interesting shadows, people who looked like they had stories to tell. What happened to that? Real life happened. Student loans, rent, the need for health insurance. Everyone told me that photography was a nice hobby but not a real career, so I got a practical job and told myself I'd do photography on the weekends. And do you? I haven't touched my camera in 2 years. Jack reached over and touched my hand where it was resting on the seat between us. His skin was rough and warm, and when his fingers intertwined with mine, I felt something electric shoot up my arm. Zoe, can I ask you something? Anything. What would happen if you didn't go to your sister's wedding? She'd be hurt. My family would be disappointed. Everyone would think I was being selfish and dramatic. What would happen if you did go? I'd smile and pretend to be happy for her, and then I'd go back to my life in Seattle and spend the next 10 years wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to choose something different. Jack squeezed my hand. What would choosing something different look like? I don't know. That's what's so terrifying about it. Maybe I'd try to make a living with photography. Maybe I'd travel, document stories that matter. Maybe I'd find work that feels like it contributes something meaningful to the world. What's stopping you? Fear. Money. The voice in my head that sounds suspiciously like my mother telling me that dreams don't pay the bills. What if they could? What do you mean? What if there was a way to do work you cared about and still pay the bills? What if the choice wasn't between following your dreams and being responsible? I looked at him in the dim light of the truck cab. You sound like someone who's thought about this before. I have. Every day for the past 3 months. What did you do before you lost your job? Construction management. Big projects, good money, steady work. And I was miserable every single day. Why? Because I was building things for people who had more money than they knew what to do with, while people in my own community couldn't afford basic housing. Because I was part of a system that made the rich richer while pretending it was creating value for everyone. So, what would you do differently? I'd find a way to use my skills to build things that actually matter. Affordable housing, community centers, spaces that bring people together instead of separating them. That sounds amazing. What's stopping you? Jack was quiet for a moment. The same thing that's stopping you, I think. Fear of starting over. Fear of failing. Fear that maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was when the stakes were lower. But you're willing to try? I wasn't. Until tonight. What if we figured it out together? My heart started racing. Jack, you just told me you're running away from your entire life. I was. But sitting here with you, I'm starting to think maybe I was running towards something instead of away from it. What do you mean? I mean, maybe the reason I felt compelled to pick up a hitchhiker on a desert highway was because I was supposed to meet you. You don't believe in fate. I didn't think I did. But I also didn't think I'd ever meet someone who made me want to turn around and go back to a place I was trying to escape. I stared at him. You want to turn around? I want to stop running away from things and start running toward them. Like what? Like you. The words hung between us in the small space of the truck cab, and I felt like everything I thought I knew about my life was shifting around us. Jack, this is crazy. We've known each other for 2 hours. The craziest thing I've done in the past year was pick up a hitchhiker. Before that, I spent 2 years being a caregiver, 15 years being an employee, and 8 years being a husband. Maybe it's time I did something crazy. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we turn around. I'm suggesting I drive you to your sister's wedding, and you help me figure out how to build a life that's worth staying for. What if it doesn't work? What if we get to know each other better and realize we don't actually like each other? Then we'll both be in Salt Lake City, and you can go to your sister's wedding, and I can keep driving to wherever people go when they need to start over. And if it does work, then maybe we'll both stop running and start building something together. I looked at this man who had appeared in my life like an answer to a question I hadn't known I was asking. And I realized that sometimes the most important decisions happen when you're sitting in a truck on a desert highway with someone who understands exactly why you needed to run. Okay, I said. Okay, let's turn around. Let's see what happens when two people who are tired of running decide to try standing still together. Jack smiled, and it was the first genuinely happy expression I'd seen from him all evening. But Jack, yeah, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me that if we do this, if we try this, we'll be honest about what we want instead of just being grateful for what we found. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want to be a rebound from grief, and I don't want you to be my escape from responsibility. I want us to choose each other because we actually fit, not just because we're both broken in compatible ways. Jack lifted our joined hands and pressed a soft kiss to my knuckles. I promised to figure out the difference between healing together and hiding together. And I promised to figure out the difference between being brave and being reckless. Deal. Jack started the truck and pulled a U-turn on the empty highway, heading back toward Reno, toward the life he'd been trying to leave behind, toward whatever we might build together. So what's your sister's name? He asked as we drove back through the desert darkness. Sarah. And Jack? Yeah. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for getting in. 6 months later, Jack and I are living in a small house outside Reno, and every morning when I wake up next to him, I'm reminded that sometimes the best things in life happen when you're brave enough to get in the truck with someone who's heading in the same direction you are, even when neither of you knows exactly where that is. My sister's wedding was beautiful, And Jack was the perfect plus one, charming with my family, patient with the chaos, and completely supportive when I gave a maid of honor speech about having the courage to choose love even when it doesn't look like what you expected. Before I go, thank you. These stories are real. They're mine. And I share one every day. If you want to hear more, subscribe. We still take long drives sometimes, Jack and I, but now we're driving toward things instead of away from them. And every time we pass a hitchhiker on the highway, Jack slows down and asks if I think we should stop, because he says you never know when someone might be exactly where they need to be to change your life forever.